Let's talk now to Haras Rafiq, who's from the anti-extremism organisation, the Quilliam Foundation. In Salford, Labour's David Hanson is with us. He's Shadow Immigration Minister. And we're also joined by Dal Babu, who's a former Metropolitan Chief Superintendent. Welcome, all of you. Haras Rafiq, what do you think?
I think the Home Secretary has actually got the right idea in terms of identifying the problem. I think she's named the ideology finally. It's a poisonous Islamist ideology, unlike some of the leaders around the world who refuse to do so. But I think one of the things she's still doing is looking at this problem purely through the lens of criminality and legislation. There are some good things that she's announced, and I think some things that won't work. For example, the banning orders. We already know there are organisations that fall short of breaking the law that have been banned a number of times. They just keep setting up under different names. So I think on the whole there are some good things, but I want to see this legislation go hand in hand with a new strategy that looks at how we can actually use civic society to combat this problem.
Yes. Haras Rafiq, do you think it is clearly it's more important to protect the British public from this kind of extremist ideology and where it can lead to, which is people blowing up tubes and buses in central London or other cities or whatever? That's more important than people's rights to freedom of speech?
I think the two go hand in hand. I think that there's some confusion, I think, in the messaging that the Home Secretary is giving out. This particular legislation does not come under the umbrella of preventing extremism. It's around protecting the community. Legislation should and only be designed to do that. Now, when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to prevention, I think that's a role really for the civic society. Government needs to show leadership and take control, and I think governments should actually guide and empower the society to actually take and view Islamist extremism rather than Islamic extremism. I just wanted to correct one of my colleagues. There is a difference between Islam and Islamism very clearly, and I think that society as a whole needs to tackle that.
Okay, so you're saying actually to counter poisonous ideology, we persuade, we argue.
Absolutely.
Rather than using legislation?
That's the only way we're going to do it. I think that if you try and ban somebody who has ideas that you and I and the rest of my colleagues would disagree with, I think that only leads to other people feeling disenfranchised and actually those ideas then fermenting within certain spaces. I think we need to be very careful. We need to look at the community as a whole, the British community, and not go down this faith-based identity politics where we say that we identify a particular community just by their faith. If we regard this as a Muslim problem, a British Muslim problem, and purely try to look at it through that lens, what we actually end up doing is polarising the debate. We actually end up giving more empowerment to the far right, giving more empowerment to Islamists. We need to look at this holistically as a community problem and treat people like myself and Dal, who are Muslims, as citizens and not just measure us by our faith and treat us differently because we happen to be of a particular faith.
Right.
When we take the communities with us...
We are talking about far-right groups potentially and Islamists, fundamental Islamists, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
What else?
Well, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum.
Who else is on the spectrum?
Well, we have far left. We have far left who actually sympathise and actually go along with some of the Islamist organisations. Right. What we need to do is look at this.
Anarchist groups? Would you include that on the spectrum?
we could call anarchists within the spectrum of extremism, but we need to look at this as a societal problem. We need to take the whole society with us and treat Islamism in this case as for what it is, a fascist totalitarian ideology, and look at it through that lens and not treat Muslims any different to the way that we treat anybody else.